school's out, blame corona, but I still got some science I could show ya. No class, no school, that's cool, throw the class on the YouTube. Even if they shut the school down, I'll get that knowledge anyway somehow. Real scholars won't stop for corona. Tune in for that science takeover.
Happy Thursday, everybody. Today is March 26, 2020. Thank you all for joining us for another science lesson. Today we have 128 subscribers. Shout out to the HB Warriors and all of our subscribers for tuning in. Let's get started with today's lesson. We are in a new lesson, and we're now in lesson 6, titled Cell Theory. Cell Theory. The section we're focusing on today, section 1, talks about cells of multicellular organisms, and your learning objective for today, I can explain the basic function of multicellular organisms. So let's get into it. What in the world are multicellular organisms? Let's see. All right, so if you counted up all of the human cells and all of the parts of the human body, you would find tens of trillions of cells. A tiny worm known as a C. elegans is only made of about 1,000 cells. What in the world is a C. elegans? We're going to get into that in a sec. What do these two very different living things have in common? Human and a worm. Let's talk about it. Take a look at this video.
C. elegans is a microscopic roundworm, also known as a nematode, that is 1 millimeter long. These nematodes are usually found in temperate soil environments worldwide. In the wild, they feed on the bacteria that help to decay decomposing plant matter. In the laboratory, however, C. elegans are typically fed lab strains of E. coli. C. elegans are transparent, thus facilitating the study of the cellular differentiation and developmental fate of each of its cells. There are two forms, hermaphrodites and males. Hermaphrodites have 959 somatic cells, while males have 1,031. The organism's neural circuit, made up of only 302 neurons, is extremely primitive, especially when compared to the approximately 100 billion neurons and the 60 trillion connections between them, known as synapses, that make up the average human brain. However, as a result of its simplicity, transparent nature, and the well-characterized cell lineages, the entire pattern of neuron connections, or connectome, of the C. elegans has been mapped. Despite the relatively simple neuronal system present within C. elegans, it displays numerous complex and primitive behaviors. Primitive behaviors include feeding, locomotion, and reproduction. Complex behaviors include learning, mating, or social behaviors. Researchers study behavior of these worms by observing how they are attracted to food and chemicals. Ultimately, behaviors reflect the activity of the nervous system. Despite their small size and simplicity, C. elegans are very useful to science, both to understand basic biological mechanisms and also to study basic mechanisms of disease that translate to understanding how to fight disease in humans.
All right, so now we know the similarities between a worm and a human, all right? Both of them are considered multicellular organisms, all right? Humans and worms are multicellular organisms, or in other words, organisms that are made up of many cells. The word multicellular comes from the root multi, meaning many. Just as a multicolored t-shirt has many colors, a multicellular organism is made of many cells. All animals, not only humans and worms, are multicellular. Plants and most fungi, like mushrooms, are also multicellular. All right, let's take a look a little further. We have some examples here. Okay. Multicellular organisms are organisms that are made of many cells. Animal, plants, and most fungi are multicellular organisms. Cells are very small. So You usually need a microscope to see that these organisms are made of cells. And we'll get into microscope usage a little later. All right. Let's talk about some details because our learning objective wants to make sure that we know some basic functions of multicellular organisms. So, cells of multicellular organisms are specialized. This means that each kind of cell has a particular shape to do a particular job, rather than to do all jobs. Remember that heart cells are a different shape and perform a different function than skin cells. This specialization of cells is true for all multicellular organisms. A leaf cell will have a different structure and function within a plant than a root cell. Okay? Each specialized cell of a multicellular organism needs other cells to function. The cells of multicellular organisms work together to survive. That's one takeaway. They share nutrients and materials with other cells within the organism's body. Very cooperative. They're working together, right? These cells also communicate with one another through different, we talked about chemical signals, all right? They send and receive instructions from other cells about what to do or make. Here's another key piece. Cells in a multicellular organism will even sacrifice themselves if they are infected or in some way endangering the survival of the neighboring cells. How considerate of that, right? How considerate is that? So the big goal is to make sure that the organism survives. If a cell does die, another cell will often divide and make a copy of itself to fill the empty space in the tissue. Cell division also allows the whole organism to grow and form new parts during development. I want you guys to take a look at this next video that gives us some more information about multicellular organisms, but it also leads us into our discussion for tomorrow, which talks about unicellular organisms. All right, so just briefly, let's talk about the difference between the two. All right, and from National Geographic, we can see cells function differently in unicellular and multicellular organisms. What do you think this means? Multicellular means many cells. Unicellular would mean what? One cell, right? A unicellular organism depends upon just one cell for all of its functions, while a multicellular organism has cells specialized to perform different functions that collectively support the organism. All right? So each specialized cell does its own job, right? It's kind of like an organization, right? Or even children within a household, you may have a specific chore that you do to contribute to the entire household, right? So you can think of it like that. They each have a specialized job, all right? Let's take a look at this video about unicellular versus multicellular.
Did you know that some organisms exist of just one cell? These simple organisms, like amoeba, are unicellular. They depend on simple diffusion for life. They are usually too small to be visible with the naked eye, like bacteria, and so we need a microscope to see them. But there are some unicellular algae that are about 15 to 20 centimeters in size. All other organisms are multicellular. They consist of multiple cells and are more complex. The vast majority of plants and animals are multicellular. Being multicellular allows the organisms to be larger and have cell differentiation. So different types of cells to carry out different tasks. Groups of cells then function in the same way to form tissues or organs. These specialized organs carry out our life processes, working together in systems. Unicellular organisms can carry out all life processes in just the one cell, using internal structures called organelles. The decreased ability to share out life's processes means unicellular organisms have a low level of efficiency, whereas multicellular organisms are highly efficient, with division of labor at the cellular, tissue, or organ system level. Unicellular organisms cannot grow large because they are limited by a surface area to volume ratio, whereas multicellular organisms can increase the number of small cells to give it a large size overall. Multicellular organisms have long lifespans because individual cells have a relatively small workload, whereas the hard-working single cell of a unicellular organism has such a heavy workload that it can only maintain a very short lifespan. I don't need to tell you how we get nutrition, but how does a single cell manage it? Usually by phagocytosis, where the food is engulfed and then stored in food vacuoles inside the organism. All prokaryotes are unicellular. Eukaryotes can be uni or multicellular organisms. We look at the difference between pro and eukaryotes in this video, and we'll discover why the statement that all prokaryotes are unicellular is contended by some scientists, as well as prokaryotes. Most protists and some fungi like yeast are also unicellular. So there we have unicellular and multicellular organisms. Final thought to leave you with is that injury to the cell of a unicellular organism can cause death. That one cell is everything to them, whereas injury or death of some cells in multicellular organisms should not cause a problem. Those cells can simply be replaced.
If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Comment below if you have any questions. Why not check out our FuseSchool app as well? Until next time.
All right, so hopefully you have an introduction to the difference between the two. We'll talk again about unicellular organisms tomorrow in depth. All right, let's get into our check for understanding today. Let's see what we know based off of our discussion. Okay, before we tap into that, let's look over here. All right, what do we know? Multicellular organisms are organisms that are made up of many cells. Fact. All right, each multicellular organism is specialized, and each specialized cell has a particular function. All right, so the cells in the stomach, they have a particular function. The cells in the heart, they have a particular function. Cells in your skin have a particular function. All right, these cells work together to survive. These cells share nutrients and materials with other cells. These cells communicate with each other through chemical signals, and these cells send and receive instructions from each other. All right, let's check and see what we understand. Drag the terms to their appropriate locations. All right, workbank, specialized, unicellular, multicellular. Let's see what we can drag and drop here. All plants and animals are, which one would you select? I think you said multicellular. Dropping that in there for you. I know if you were here, you would do it. So I'm just going to drop that in there for you. All right. Meaning that they are made up of many cells. Each cell is to perform a particular function. Specialized. All right. And keep that in mind. Check our answers here. And we are correct. Okay. So takeaway for today, we want to make sure that we understand what multicellular organisms are. So what is a multicellular organism? Give 4 examples of multicellular organisms. We discussed 2, right? So, in your own words, please describe multicellular organism. Mike's on you. A multicellular organism is absolutely correct. Yes, that is a scholar-like answer. Outstanding. Give yourself a round of applause. Yes. All right, give 4 examples of multicellular organisms. What are your 4? Good job, nice work, nice work. This is a piece of cake with a little icing, I love it. All right, so here, an answer that's provided is a multicellular organism is an organism made of more than one cell, made of many cells. Humans, dogs, ferns, and spiders are some examples of multicellular organisms. All right. Another big takeaway, the cells in multicellular organisms are unique in structure and function. Recall some of the human cells you previously learned about. Pick 2 different kinds of cells in the human body and write 1 to 2 sentences on how the cell structure is related to its function. How the structure is related to its function. Okay, use drawings to support your explanation. I'm going to share this one with you because obviously this is a drawing required to answer the question. All right, and so we could take a look at a neuron. Okay, it has long axons with multiple branches to send signals from one cell to many other cells. So we're looking at the structure, how it's shaped. All right, and the structure of it is going to assist in its function. All right, so because it has these branches, that helps with sending the signals. Okay. On the other hand, we have cells in the small intestine. All right, and that's what this image illustrates. Has a folded membrane on the top to increase the surface area of the cell. All right, folded surface increases surface area, which increases its ability to absorb nutrients passing through the digestive system, and that's what it would need to do in that area in the small intestine. All right, so take a look at the structure here compared to the structure here. Okay, in this case, we need to send signals, right? And here we're absorbing nutrients. So we want to make sure that it's shaped in a way that will allow for absorption, right? So this just goes to show, okay, the cells in multicellular organisms are unique in structure, how they're shaped, in order to assist with their function. All right? So make sure you have that understanding, and we are good to go for today. Great job. Nice work, everybody. All right, let's see if we can close out today without the outro lyrics on the board. Here we go. It's been fun. It's been real. We break it down and pick up science skills. Give yourself 2 claps just for tuning in. Come back, meet tomorrow. We can learn again. Oh, it's been fun. It's been real. We break it down and pick up science skills. Give yourself 2 claps just for tuning in. Come back, meet tomorrow. We can learn again. Thank you guys for joining in. I'll see you tomorrow.